You know what, Mona, what they call this in the sports world is a home and home, when two teams are going to play each other and they play each other back to back, one at one person's arena and then the other at the other team's arena. And so I did Just Between Us last week, and here you are on Secret Show this week. So I'll drive, you just sit back and enjoy the ride.
It's a treat.
Hello, everyone. This is JVL here with Mona Charon. What is going on in the world? I've now forgotten what we were going to talk about. Did we
I
want
remember.
to talk about the Trump? Please tell me.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
You texted me that you were interested in the discontinuity between the two parties, where you have all of these Republicans going berserk, and you don't see the same thing from Democrats. At least not nearly the same degree. There are some extreme Democrats, of course, and I would argue that going back in time, there were quite a few who became a bit mainstream. But I did sort of think, all right, let's look into this a little bit. So I have some products of my research.
Tell me all about this, because I'm having you ghostwrite my newsletter for Thursday. We're taping this on Thursday morning. I am 2/3 of the way through writing this, and I was holding off on finishing because I wanted to talk to you and have you make me smart.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I do this with Sarah all the time. Like, we sit down to tape on Friday, and I just sort of start asking her questions, and then all this shows up in the newsletter on Friday morning because I've had her program my mind.
So. The parties, and this is one of the reasons why third parties are a danger, is that the parties are very different. The Democratic Party is much more diverse, and the Republican Party is much more monochrome. So, and I don't mean that in the racial sense, although it's that too. But so if you look at Gallup data, you will find that in terms of ideology, the Democratic voters are almost equally split between moderates and liberals. So 51% identify as liberal and 49% identify as moderate. Whereas in the Republican Party, it's a much bigger proportion identify as conservative. The other thing to look at is the composition of the electorate in general. So liberals make up the smallest share of the electorate at 25%. So that's liberals. And then 36% as moderates and 37%, the plurality, as conservative. So when you look at those data and you think, okay, so Republicans can win if they bring their base, which is unified, plus a fraction of the moderates.
Right.
Whereas the Democratic Party has to bring a much bigger percentage of moderates to its side in order to win elections. And that is the discontinuity. And I think that's why you've seen Democrats responding to incentives and responding intelligently. They are trying to run more moderate candidates in swing districts, and that's been successful for them. Not always. I mean, they had a chance to take the Wisconsin Senate seat away from Ron Johnson, and they failed by running a very left-wing candidate. So sometimes they don't succeed. But there have been a bunch of straws in the wind where Democrats have been choosing, kind of moderate people. You had Shontel Brown beat the progressive Nina Turner. You had, Henry Cuellar, who's the pro-life Democrat in the House. You've had he succeeded in his race. John Fetterman, interestingly, though he was perceived to be a progressive and even a Bernie bro, he declined that label during his campaign. He said he was not. And boy, I mean, he's turned out to be, from my perspective, as somebody who wants more centrist legislators, he's turned out to be a very happy surprise. Okay, one more fact, and then I'd like to hear how you react to all this. What?
Sarah used to make fun of me for talking about how great John Fetterman was back when she was insisting that Connor Lamb was going to win the primary, and then Connor Lamb was the best person to win the Senate. And I was like, this guy John Fetterman's a rock star. You got to trust me. She didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, I know. I remember. Okay. So there's one more factoid, and then let's hear your reaction. There is no battleground state in which liberal voters make up a majority or a plurality of the electorate.
Yes. So here's my reaction. So I think that what you've just said is true, but that something else interesting has happened. As you go along that continuum, right? So if it's all a horseshoe, I'm drawing in the air for people who can't see it, right? As Republicans, as the conservative side of that, as you end on the liberal side, like as you get towards the tips of the horseshoe, the really conservative people hate the Republican Party, right? And view it as all the way, I mean, like the real conservative fringe, right? They view the Republican Party as a bunch of corporatist elites, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And on the left, same thing. You have a bunch of commies who think the Democratic Party is awful and just as bad. Al Gore was the exact same as Bob Dole or whatever. As the Republican Party, because as you say, they could rely just on base voters. As they moved closer and closer to the base, what they did was they risked being taken over by the people who were actually anti-Republican conservatives. And that is what happened in 2016. And so it was a hostile takeover. It was the first time in my memory that a political party was taken over by voters who mostly hated it. And that then caused a chain reaction, right? So, nature abhors a vacuum. And as that pulled the Republican Party close to the center of gravity of MAGA, which now owned it, the Democrats were pulled, as you say, down closer towards the center. And what interests me is, like you always have, in every time, there are people who go crazy. Either because they go crazy or because they were always crazy and they were passing and they just feel liberated to be who they are. During the last 5 or 6 years, even a bunch of liberals who went crazy wound up going crazy in the direction of MAGA. So like Naomi Wolf or Matt Taibbi or Bari Weiss. Like, Bari isn't exactly MAGA, but she's MAGA adjacent. Glenn Greenwald. And what I find interesting is that I can't think of a single example of somebody who was, let's say, like Michael Anton, like whoever the liberal Michael Anton is, his liberal analog, maybe it's Sidney Blumenthal or somebody, who became an Antifa communist. Right, because that's the analog. What you would expect is, the analog of a Michael Anton who became MAGA would be a Sidney Blumenthal who became an Antifa type. And I can't think of a single example of that. I just don't think that happened.
Right.
And that's interesting to me.
Well, I have a fairly dark interpretation of this, but that won't upset you.
Bring it on me. Oh, I love it. You're getting into the spirit of things around here.
Which is that these people are taking the temperature of the world, and they're seeing that these sort of fascist type movements have the wind at their back in many countries, including our own. And there's a feeling of, on the march, this is where the action is. And honestly, despite what the MAGA people are constantly saying about how the commies are in charge of everything, the commies are really weak at the moment. They don't control anything.
Commies got nothing.
They got nothing.
They can't even hold on to John Fetterman.
And so if you're attracted to power, and these people are, then you go where you think the action is. And that's the spirit of our age.
That is incredibly dark.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. Well done. Hey, Sarah, there's more show.
Oh, there is?
But that's only for the people who are inside the Velvet Rope, the Bulwark Plus members.
Oh, they got to subscribe.
Yeah. Tell them to subscribe. Tell the
You
people,
should subscribe,
Sarah.
Guys. Why wouldn't you subscribe? You get all kinds of things. You get some extra me and JVL. You get some extra me and George Conway. You get JVL's Triad. It's one of the best things the Bulwark offers. I read it at least once or twice a week.
Yes. Go and subscribe. We'd love to have you.